Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
which profession attracts the worst kinds of people? Unpopular opinion, but nurses. There is a lot of toxic, abusive high school girl drama type behavior among nurses. It's such an important job, and about half the people doing it shouldn't be responsible for a yogurt, let alone a human being's life. I've seen some shit, man. It was weird how all of the mean girls from my high school went to college for nursing, lol. It's like cops for women. It's a job that highly praises traits that a lot of women like to be perceived as having. It affords a lot of petty power and respect, and it gives them an excuse for being a miserable piece of shit. As someone in a related field, I've always seen nursing as a way to get a free pass to be a good person. So it attracts people with no other positive qualities, so they can fall back on being a nurse to be a good person. Obviously there are tons of good and great nurses, but those nurses would probably agree with that statement as well. This is such an interesting take. I've always wondered why so many nurses make it their entire personality and don't differentiate work from personal life. Perhaps you've hit the nail on the head. The executives that run MLMs. I'm a consultant who had those executives as a client, and I promise this is correct. When our HR expert told them that they needed a policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the CEO responded that they didn't need anyone in DC telling them how to run their company. Like, the HR expert wasn't even saying they needed it in an ethical way, just that they needed it to avoid lawsuits. The CEO still refused. So, legally exposing yourself to own the libs seems like a pretty awful type of person. In his defense, this is one thing minorities would be better off excluded from. Pyramid scheme property agents. I have had a few friends that have become realtors later in life. The ones that stayed with it totally changed who they are. After a few years they are hardly recognizable as the same people. Vain, shallow, and 100% of the time they are in character and trying to sell. A lot of people I know are becoming realtors too out of nowhere. Is this like an epidemic? I work as a photographer, and a bunch of people who are only acquaintances are hitting me up asking me to take photos of their listings for way below my usual rate. Even after I tell them my price is firm, they just keep sending me the exact same offer, lol. This has been happening much more in the last half year or so. Reality, TV, and by extension, influencers. Paparazzi. I don't particularly pay attention to celebrity shit, but I'll never forget when paparazzi climbed up the fucking fence around Michelle Williams. I think that's her name. It's been a minute. After Heath Ledger, her husband, died, to fucking snap photos of a woman grieving her husband who had unexpectedly passed away a matter of days ago. I was pretty deep into my Lil Annika punk, fuck mainstream media who cares kinda stage at that time. But I remember feeling such a deep sadness for homegirl that not only did she have to deal with her husband's untimely death and taking care of their kids by herself, she also had to deal with these grimy ass MFs trying to make a buck off of photos of her sobbing in her own backyard. Social media has actually defanged him to some extent. If you want to obsess over every aspect of a celebrity life, you don't have to buy the tablets anymore. You can follow them on Twitter. Not all nurses are mean girls, but all mean girls are nurses. And the ones that can't cut it are learning support educators, or in pharmaceutical sales. Hollywood producer, it seems, over and over and over. Politician, over and over. Edit. It is time to stop now, people. You gotta go home. Law enforcement seems to have some problems. Shocked by how low down this is. I thought I wanted to be an architect, but then I met a bunch of architects, and architecture students, and architecture professors, and they were pretty much all assholes. It was weird. I mean, how could it be so consistent? But there ya have it. One of the big reasons I dropped out of the architecture program was that most of my peers were pretentious and hostile assholes. And the professors had zero sympathy for the fact that I had a part-time job I worked to pay living expenses. I was actually told by one of them that I should reconsider my goals if I couldn't commit 100%. In 1 year, the people in my program destroyed what had been a lifelong career dream. I had a part-time job during architecture school and was given the same advice. I punched through and went and got registered and work for a firm now. I'll say this, I enjoy what I do. But architecture school only marginally prepared me for the profession. I'm glad I found a good firm. But I worked for years under terrible conditions for awful people. And it took me 10 years to find a decent workplace. If it's any consolation, none of the jerky people I went to school with became star architects. The egos, the hostility, none of it panned out. The nicest kids went the furthest. What they don't tell you is that architecture is a lifetime of learning. And only those who are open to the fact that they don't know everything are equipped to grow and change. I majored in architecture for 2 years, and to this day I remember the pretentious arrogant, almost self-worshipping attitude that career field has. I met an architect back then that said, if he wanted to, he could design a house that would make a married couple get a divorce. Where do these people get off? Edit. For the record, I respect the profession and there are definitely exceptions to the broad generalization in my comment. I have not met every architect, but 9 out of 10 that I have met are assholes. He was letting you in on a sad part of his life. He was going to show the floor plan to his childhood home. Used to a roommate who was an architect. Can confirm. Wasn't Art Vanderlei an architect? Or was it marine biologist? I used to teach in a program that often fed students into the world of architecture. Every semester I would orchestrate one charrette where I would bring in architects to critique student work, no matter how much coaching I did, to both visiting architects and students. Students would feel crushed by the feedback. There were almost always tears. I often hear back from students that it was the most impactful part of our work together. I was briefly in a program in the architecture school at a university I went to and it was my first time being in an art program with real critiques. You'd get absolutely torn apart. But if you could learn to not take it personally, it was an incredibly fast and accurate way to learn where and how to improve. Still think I have lingering negative effects from it though. But I'm also appreciative of that experience. Nowadays I'd much rather have a scathing critique than a soft one because soft critiques often feel like a waste of time. Oh, but fuck the professor I had who told the entire class he thought we were all terrible and would fail at his class and as artists. And who later made us cut up a project to prove a point about how clients will make you adjust your work. His methods produced results but hurt way too many people in the process and IMO would have been much better off easing up a bit.